Thank you. Thank you very much. Great audience here in New York. And welcome to Huckabee from the Fox News studios right here in New York City. Look, I want to make something clear. I don't hate liberals. I don't hate anybody. I actually like some liberals and enjoy talking to some of them who are rational and reasonable. It's just that not a lot of liberals make sense to me. You know, I'm trying to understand them. I just don't. Just this week, liberals in the House of Representatives once again threw a hissy fit over a bill that would have prohibited most abortions after the 5th month because science is pretty clear that babies feel pain. And it surely must be painful to have one's arms and legs ripped from the body, as happens in an abortion. But the party that screams we ought to follow the science says that when it comes to abortion, science doesn't matter. And polls show that 80% of Americans oppose late-term abortions, including 63% of women. Now, liberals are against pain for animals and whales and dolphins. They even walk around naked to protest the wearing of fur. They're against torture when it comes to terrorists and against the death penalty for criminals who rape and murder, even when the decision to execute a criminal is the result of years of legal maneuvering and careful consideration of evidence and guilt determined by a jury. But they demand the right of carrying out the death penalty on an unborn child at any time for any reason. They even insist that it's called women's health. It can't be too healthy for the baby. And if it's a little girl baby, I would think that that would be bad for that little woman's health. Liberals, well, they say they don't want the government in the bedrooms. And let me assure you, I don't want to get in a liberal's bedroom. But if something happens in that bedroom that they didn't plan, then they want the government to come in, clean up the mess, and make the rest of us pay for it. Now, liberals say that a 6-year-old little girl is grown up enough to buy the morning after pill without her doctor or even her parents knowing about it. But when she's 26 years old, she's still child enough to need her parents to cover her health insurance. Liberals think nobody ought to come between a woman and their doctor, even if the woman wants to end her baby's life. But they think it's a great idea to pass Obamacare and have the entire federal government get between men, women, and children and their doctor. Liberals believe a 14-year-old ought to be able to get birth control pills, but not a 16-ounce soda or access to a salt shaker. I mean, liberals at Planned Parenthood in Indiana say that a 13-year-old girl raped by a 17-year-old neighbor and who got pregnant from the rape and refused an abortion wouldn't have been raped if there was comprehensive sex education. Now, if a conservative ever said something as stupid as blaming the inability of a 95-pound child to fend off a rapist because she didn't have enough sex education classes, he'd be hooted out of town for being an idiot. A liberal says it, and it's supposed to be smart? Look, I try to be nice to people I don't agree with. I figure that maybe that great psychologist Ron White has it diagnosed pretty accurately.
You can't fix stupid.
And granted, some liberals really believe their stuff, and maybe they're consistent about it and even can defend it. But not many. And on a lot of issues, they just don't make sense. Well, my first guest spent over a dozen years in Washington as a senator from Pennsylvania, and he campaigned across the country as a presidential candidate in 2012. But now Rick Santorum has a new job as the CEO of Echolite Pictures, a Christian film company. We're happy to have Rick Santorum here. So, Rick, does that mean you're not going to run again?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means that I'm going to be engaged in something that just like you are, Mike. I think you realize, politics is a very important avenue. I am still involved in it as you are. I know you travel around the country and you give speeches, and obviously you've got your radio show and your TV show, and you're engaged and involved on the front lines of the fight. And I've got an organization, Patriot Voices, and I do also the speaking circuit and campaign for candidates, and we're going to continue to do all that. But I think you realize, too, that the culture is very, very important. And I think it was one of the great Greek philosophers who said, give me the storytellers and I'll control the country within a generation. And then you know well that the storytellers for this country have not been storytellers sharing the values that you and I support. They share the values that you were just very aptly haranguing for the first few minutes of this show and pointing out the illegitimacy of them. But we need people out there who are going to be, purveyors of good, positive content, and that's really the reason that we decided to take a step in that direction.
So it's not that this position takes you off the stage politically and does not eliminate the possibility that you would still look at 2016?
Well, and frankly, any more than the same would be for you, Mike. I mean, I think, being out there during the interim between campaigns to try to add to the value of our country, both from the standpoint of the, putting forth, good ideas and lifting up people, and also, creating, in your case, you do it by creating great positive content on television, on the radio, and we're looking at it from the standpoint of creating great positive content in film, and that's really an area that I think conservatives have been really woefully negligent, is going out there and producing the kind of video content and dramatic content that is really important in shaping the hearts and minds of Americans, and particularly young Americans.
You spent 12 years in the Senate. The Senate right now is debating a very significant immigration bill. I'm sure you've looked at it. Would you vote for it if you were in the Senate today?
No, I would not. I sort of take the common sense approach that people who come to this country, as my father did as an immigrant, and my grandfather did as an immigrant to this country, should not be treated the same as people who came here and broke the law. And really, what this bill does is really put them on sort of equal footing. And I just think that's not right. What we need to do is focus on what makes America work. We're the party that stands by the rule of law. We're the party that says that we need to have a strong economy and have laws in place to make sure that our economy is growing, to create opportunities. That we need to be the party that talks about strong families and strong communities, and reach out to all ethnic groups and embrace what the great vision of our country is, and try to play off what the Democrats are doing and be just a little less bad than they are in some of their programs. I think that's a mistake. We need to stay true to our values, and I think our values are ones that made this country the greatest it is today.
Well, you've made the point that the Republicans' big problem is not so much that they didn't vote for an immigration package or that they're not connecting with Hispanic voters. What do the Republicans need to do differently? And I think you and I share some of these views, but I want you to articulate, where is it that we're missing it?
Yeah, Mike, you've been a great leader on this, I have to admit. And I did an op-ed, you can look it up on USA Today, that just published it today, about how we need to go out and talk to voters that frankly don't think we care much about them, and they don't think we care much about them in part because we don't talk very much about them and talk about the problems that they have. And our party tends to focus on the super achievers. They tend to focus on the entrepreneurs and the business people, and if you listen to a Republican talk, the focus is always on these people and how they impact the economy. And it's important. These are very important people in our economy. They're very important people in our country. But there's also a whole lot of people who work for those folks that make this country a great country too, not just because of the work they do at the company, but the work that they do in their families, the work that they do in their communities, the work that they do in their churches. And we don't tend to value that work. We don't tend to talk about the ways in which we can help them improve not just the quality of their job, but the quality of their community and their families. And we need to have not just rhetoric that connects with how most Americans live their lives, which is not just at work, but how most Americans understand that this culture, our communities, our churches are all fracturing. Things are changing, and it's not just the economy that's changing, but our country. And unless we're out there talking to the average guy in America and the concerns he has, and have ideas that meet them where they are, then we're going to be a party that's going to be getting narrower and narrower.
Well, I'm going to ask Senator Santorum to weigh in on the IRS targeting conservatives and other issues when we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back.